Hello, and if you hear the news from Channel 1, today, the 23rd of February, in Russia, they celebrate the Day of the Defenders of the Homeland. In the recent past, this day was commemorating the commemoration of the creation of the first Red Army, and later the armed forces of the former USSR, created in 1918. Their main aim was to defend social acquisitions from imperialistic strivings. In today's address to the military servicemen, the President Yeltsin called the army and the fleet the guarantors of peace, stability, and democratic foundations of the country. Among triumphant measures which occurred today was the visit by the leaders of the country of the Suvorov Academy, laying wreaths to the tomb of the unknown soldier by the Kremlin wall. In the afternoon, there was a festive meeting in the Central House of the Russian Army. It is natural that the speeches touched not only the accomplishments and feats and valor of Russian troops, but the many problems of the military-industrial sector, from non-payment of salaries in the absence of housing to the trillions of debts for the needs of the defense in general. Today, this ship, which should be at sea and protect national borders of Russia, is at the dock. The problem is that in the fleet there is insufficient fuel and a shortage of crew members. The majority of ships demand repair, but there is no money for this. And so they stand at the dock and morally age. 16 years, this is the age of the carrier Kiev. The age is not great, but repair, which cannot be conducted anywhere after the collapse of the USSR, and so the ship shall go for metal scrap. But not everything is so bad in the fleet. Surface ships and nuclear submarines go out to sea. Only in 1993, 900 sailors of the Northern Fleet received medals and honors from the government of Russia for fulfillment of their military missions. It is clear that one can faithfully serve only with one's personal life in order. A person with a rifle is also a person. He has the same problems as others, a house, a family, and how to provide for them. Last year, the officers' corps of Russia was decreased by 150,000 people, and this added new problems. Today, in the Russian armed forces, there's more than 125,000 people who have no apartments. This is an entire city. Everything points to the budget. Last year, it comprised 7.5 trillion rubles. Of it, realistically allotted was only 6. And now, the salaries of soldiers and officers are delayed by 2 to 3 months at times. And add to this the interruption with energy supply, provision of foods and services, and the picture is very bleak. Naturally, the leaders of the military department seek solutions. If the army cannot be severely reduced, then it can at least not be increased. And as a result, the number of students of military academies is being reduced, and they're examining the possibility to revoke the decree on supplementary soldiers staffed through contracts, and also refusal of acceptance of students of civilian and technical academies. A special problem are the military pensioners. Let's compare. In the United States, the government pays for all members of the family of military pensioners tourism, passes for theater and concerts. In our country, the military pensioner himself has the right to free health care, and in rare cases, he's given passes at a 25% discount. And so the government is seeking funds for the army, but still, they are clearly insufficient. And at the same time, everyone understands, without normal financing, the army cannot function normally. And now briefly about other events which occurred today in the country and the world, and information which we have at this hour. The State Duma of Russia, with an absolute majority of votes, adopted a decision on political amnesty for participants of the August and October putsches. The irreconcilable opposition conducts under red banners meetings in the center of Moscow demanding the restoration of the Soviet Union. The government of Kyrgyzia is working on extreme measures for their taxation policies. In the United States, a scandal is developing around the spy family of the Ameses, who for more than 6 years actively worked for Russian intelligence. The deputies of the State Duma of Russia adopted today in the third reading the package of documents on political amnesty. As lawyers clarify, the prerogatives to announce amnesty belong truly to the lower chamber of parliament, but amnesty at the same time, as a rule, considering world experience, is extended to condemned persons, not to those who are under immediate investigation or court proceedings. In the parliament, not often are ovations heard. More frequently, political storms occur there. In the Russian State Duma today, ovations were heard. They arose after the adoption by the Duma of the resolution on amnesty in connection with the adoption of the Constitution of the Russian Federation. The discussion of representatives of all factions was lengthy, and after it, the lower chamber of Parliament, by open vote, adopted the entire package of documents directed at achieving civil accord in society. In a special memorandum, it was noted that in Russia, the need has ripened to establish real democracy on the basis of strict adherence to the laws. Especially strained in the discussions in Parliament, there was when the deputies were deciding what to do with the participants of the events of August 91 and May and September-October of 1993. Even after the amnesty was decided upon, the polar divergencies in opinions remained. Now, they, having received amnesty and in essence the support of the State Duma, again will resume their old affairs and again will lead people through the streets of Moscow and again will call to overthrow the so-called criminal regime. The planned reconciliation is exclusively important for the entire country. It cannot function properly if, as previously, there will be conflicts, scandals and divisions. And so immediately after the adoption of the document, such realities clashed as the humanitarian principles entrenched in the resolution of amnesty and extreme political aims, the adherents to which are unconditionally the deputies themselves. One has to consider also how post factum Boris Yeltsin will react. For tomorrow, his meeting is scheduled with the deputies of the Federal Assembly. For now, we know the opinion of the member of the Presidential Advisory Board, Emil Apayan. The fact, he said, that the package of documents on amnesty the State Duma adopted on the eve of Boris Yeltsin's address before Parliament puts constructive dialogue under major doubt. Depending on political orientation and factional interests, the attitude to the decision on amnesty and its possible repercussions was expressed today throughout the day by many prominent political and social activists of Russia. All those who today, and that is probably the former political opponents, are located in Lefortovo, they are not political criminals, and all of them unanimously, as far as I know, the prosecutor's office is pressing charges in accordance with the criminal legislation. The press secretary, the President of Russia, Vyacheslav Kostikov, called the decision of the Duma a challenge to Russian democracy. Amnesty brings damage to the cooperation of all branches of government and the idea of law and order, it says in the document circulated by the press service. Since this decision is from the legal sphere, it becomes into the political sphere and emphasizes the unity of the goals of the communists and the Zhirinovsky supporters through destabilization of society and so to seize power themselves. Anatoly Lukyanov feels the results of the voting a legal step toward accord in society. According to him, the release from incarceration of 50 people will not in any way influence the destabilization in the country. Convinced that blood will flow again from the imminent release of agitators is Yegor Gaidar, who reminded that the president, in accordance with the new Russian constitution, has no right to veto the decision of the lower chamber of parliament. Sergei Shakrai states that his faction is of the view that amnesty must not be extended to those who, during the time of the putsch, committed criminal acts with weapons in hand. The day is commemorated is not the largest victory of the Red Army regiments near Narva in 1918, but the latter years become the reason for demonstration of political views recently. Today, the 23rd of February, is no exclusion when on the theatrical square, representatives of the Front of the National Salvation gathered with Russian communists and workers of Russia and other movements of similar orientations. The participants of the meeting joyously greeted a column of patriots and communists who appeared from the direction of the Belarus train station. A celebration for all those who wear epaulets on their shoulders. The orators pronounced cliché phrases, rushing to get into current political situations. Cries were preceded by the announcement of the already known decision of the State Duma. Weighty words were spoken by Alexei Nevzorov, Saja Umalatova, communist leaders. As for the rest, the event appeared traditional for such measures. There was active dissemination of patriotic literature. The participants in unison chanted angry slogans at all levels of government. Judging from individual replicas of speakers, the receipt from city authorities of a sanction for holding such a meeting, the undemocratic opposition intends to view as a hypothetical possibility to gather in the center of Moscow continuously. Yet today, extremely vital for Russia as well as for international relations as a whole was the problem of Bosnian regularization and the role of Russian diplomacy in preventing the bombing of Serb positions near Sarajevo. During the civil war in the former Yugoslavia, no practical success was achieved by any of the peacekeeping missions of the UN and the European Council on Defense and Cooperation. The plan of Moscow was accepted by all warring sides, but elicited a mixed reaction from Western leaders. Today, a response statement was issued by the press service of the President Yeltsin, which states the impermissibility of exclusion of Russia from deciding major international problems. Boris Yeltsin, in an interview to our correspondent, stated the following. I proposed the following. To end the Yugoslavian problem, let's all get together. Russia, the United States, England, France, Germany, all of the leaders. Let a task force first prepare some sort of a text. We'll gather for only one day, anywhere. I proposed either Moscow or Geneva or Bonn, just for one day. And let's all find a common point so that we should have one point of view. And we would then sign such a document. Of course, it would have historical significance. And possibly, it would finally end the bloodshed in Yugoslavia. Today, on the Day of the Defenders of the Homeland, on the main base of the Russian battalion of former Yugoslavia in eastern Slovenia, the traditional parades with bestowing of medals were not held. Parades were postponed for better days. 1,240 soldiers and officers were sent to Sarajevo from here. Today, they have been fully located there. Under normal circumstances, there is electricity, but no heat. Heat has been promised within the next 2 days. The battalion has already received a military mission. Today, the battalion carries the service in basic regions. For example, one region is the collection site of Serb weapons, which is being guarded according to the agreement reached between the Muslims and the Serbs. And one group carries the mission today in the Sarajevo airport. The rest have also received missions on the line of division between the Serbs and Muslims in order to conduct patrol there. I met with General Rose, and he told me that basically they will be serving at very difficult sites in very difficult regions, and we were on the verge of catastrophe. But both Serbs and Muslims have fulfilled their obligations, as a result of which the attack was cancelled. God grant it not be repeated. How do you think, are they stationed there for long? For now, until the next level of peace is embarked upon, that is, the opening of roads for delivery of humanitarian aid and other issues, there will be at least 2 months. In general, the contingent, obviously, this is my personal opinion, will probably have to serve there for 2 years. After the international conference in Bonn on the regularization of the conflict in Bosnia, to Moscow returned the Deputy Minister of Foreign Affairs of Russia, Vitaly Churkin. Answering the press at the Sheremetyevo airport, Churkin said, "The main result of this political meeting, as it seems to me, was that there has arisen, and perhaps this is a strong term, but a political coalition has been formed on the regularization of Bosnia-Herzegovina. There was a high level of coincidence of approaches and goals seen in relation to what is necessary to do. And this political content of the Bonn meeting, this, according to me, in its significance and depth, exceeds all those practical steps for the very near future. Now we have passed the crisis stage and are now in the stage of intensive political contacts. Here the goal is to, again, prevent a new crisis in Bosnia-Herzegovina. According to many reports from the site of the Armenian-Azerbaijani armed conflict, the armed military activities here have essentially stopped. The military departments of the warring republics, with the mediation of Russia, are preparing a basis for a three-sided meeting of the presidents. This Interfox was told today by Pavel Grachov. The Russian minister also emphasized that according to the 18th of February protocol signed in Moscow, the military activities are to completely cease by the 1st of March of this year. 50 years ago, the troops of the NKVD accomplished a historically unheard-of deportation of peoples of Chechnya and Ingushetia, which lasted for 13 years. Exact facts on the repressed peoples have not yet been published, and only the telegram of conveying forces of the NKVD, General Bachkov, to Laurenti Beria is known about, in which it says to Siberia sent then were 180 convoys of 85 wagons in each, without any mention that people were in those wagons. And the economic news of the day. An all-time record in currency trade was reached by the rate of the American dollar in Moscow. The ruble fell by 39 points and the American dollar is now 1,624 rubles. Today there was a record volume of sales. Banks purchased $144 million. As Interfox reports today, signed was a resolution of government on the economic conditions of the functioning of the agrarian industrial sector during the current year. The precise volume of government financing is not yet known. It is only reported that the request of the agrarians for 15 trillion rubles was significantly cut. At 7 o'clock at the ZIL plant, not only does the main conveyor begin to operate, but don't be surprised, also a bakery. ZIL today bakes 5 tons of bread and has stopped buying bread for plant cafeterias from city bakeries. Who has ever tried this bread shares the opinion of the ZIL workers that it is tastier and 100 rubles cheaper. The plant it also produces famous pastry and cakes and is known and available to those who work here and after the shift buy it for their own homes. All of this relates to the social programs of ZIL, which haven't been cancelled but continue even to develop. All circles in the House of Culture are functioning. There's access to children and adults of sports facilities. And recently, not only was the bakery opened, but a new diagnostic center, the most contemporary plant clinic in Moscow. Naturally, to support all of this is difficult for the plant, but for the ZIL products, anxious to trade their goods are residents of urban regions of Russia and neighboring countries. And all this together makes higher by 1/4 the salary of ZIL workers. On the backdrop of a difficult situation in the economy, the position of the company is preferable to other giants, probably because here they managed to preserve all the best which was accumulated over the decades. And why was privatization then necessary if it deprived workers of their usual standard of life? The forecast for the current year published today by the Ministry of Economics of Russia, in which the monetary financial policy includes details of priority changes, new of which are introduction of taxes on fixed assets and export capital. Inflation is planned to be reduced to 7 to 9% per month against 21% in February. The annual growth in consumer prices by the end of 1994 will be 5 times. Ukraine. The Supreme Soviet adopted the decision to hear within the next few days President Kravchuk with a report on the contemporary social economic situation in the Republic. Today, a series of Western agencies stated that Leonid Kravchuk announced his intention to not run for the June presidential elections, explaining it by the weight of the economic crisis for which he carries direct responsibility. The treasury is empty, the deficit of the budget is 40%, the standard of living is declining, nothing to support the poor with. In January, taxes were collected at 2 6/10% from the gross national product, when it should be 20 to 25%. The International Currency Fund is complaining. Credits are deteriorating and going away like water into the sand. Recently, Kyrgyzstan received financial aid from Russia, but will it be wasted? Evasion of payment of taxes and unfeasible usage of budget funds will be seen as an undermining of the foundation of state security. Extreme measures are provided for reorganization and even liquidation of non-paying companies and revoking of taxation and excise discounts and severe fines. The Ministry of Finance is developing a Department of Tax Police. One must admit that today financial barriers do not only complicate the process of the broadening of information space, but visibly contract its parameters for non-paying objects of the CIS countries. However, Belarusian researchers, developers of systems of communications and telecommunications, refute the possibility in this situation to stifle their own scientific potential. The proof of this was the Minsk International Salon, the contemporary means of telecommunications, where among developers and makers of Russia, the Baltic countries and the Western European countries, the most impressive displays were occupied by the Belarusian state and private companies. Together with the latest ATS telephones, systems of optic fiber, radio, telephones, and numerical and space communications of domestic productivity, worthy of undisputed attention, present is production of world leaders, which are represented also by Belarusian firms, among them the Eastern European dealer Panasonic, the Wilmark company. These popular systems of wireless communications, telephones, faxes, transmitters, are staunch competition for Belarusian producers who have not yet established their names. However, conviction in the presence of the great scientific reserve does not deprive the Belarusian producers of the desire to capture the market of communications. The information expanse has no limit. Information about other events of today. In Moscow, in the St. Daniel's Monastery, they discussed problems of the schism of the Orthodox Church in Ukraine. The Metropolitan Anthony brought a repentance to the Patriarch Alexei II for participation in the division of the Church, stating that the battle for autocephaly is supported by anti-church forces for whom Christianity is only a means to realize distant political plans of certain forces. Today, for the Patriarch of all Russia, was not only a work day. The primate of the Russian Orthodox Church turned 65 years of age. In connection with this date, the President of Russia, Yeltsin, by decree, awarded the Patriarch Alexei II with the Order of the Friendship of the People. This morning, in the house chapel of the Vladimir icon of the Mother of God in the Moscow residence of the Patriarch, the prelate of the Russian Orthodox Church served the Divine Liturgy. Patriarch Alexei was born in Tallinn in a deeply pious family who annually went on pilgrimages to holy places in Russia and took their son with them. This, to a great degree, defined the spiritual path of the life of the future patriarch. In 1950, he was ordained a deacon, and later he became a priest. On the 3rd of March, 1961, in the Trinity Cathedral of the Trinity Sergiev Monastery, he was tonsured a monk. On the 7th of June, 1990, on the Diocesan Sobor of the Russian Orthodox Church, he was elevated to the throne of the Moscow Patriarchal See. His intronization was conducted 3 days later. Looking back at the last years, what would you like to single out of your personal life? I would like to single out my pastoral service, which has been ongoing now during the last 44 years. It takes up the greatest part of my life. And pastoral service has given me very much. It gives me very much, and I hope until my last breath it will continue to give me, because this is serving the Church as well as dealing with people. The birthday of the Most Holy Patriarch Alexei was celebrated in a small circle of close friends and the closest clergy. This is a personal civil celebration, and as a Christian, Patriarch Alexei first of all celebrates the Day of his Guardian Angel, which falls on the 25th of February, when the celebration will occur on the event of his namesday and his birthday. As Editas reports, today Boris Yeltsin sent a letter to the President of the Latvian Republic in which the main attention is accented on the discrimination on an ethnic basis. In the document, it is emphasized that from now on, in the new conditions, the main aspect in the relations between Moscow and Riga will be the aim of regulating through the two-sided agreement the problem of citizenship of the Russian-speaking people of this pre-Baltic Republic. The Paris Club decided to postpone for another 4 months payment of the foreign debt of Russia. It affects part of the debt in the sum of $15 billion and embraces just as part of the general sum as well as interest on it. According to the agency France Press, the issue now is 3 or 4 billion American dollars. The Russian-Polish conference called to the new cooperation was opened in Krakow today by Andrzej Kozyrev and his colleague, the Minister of Foreign Affairs, Andrzej Lichowski. Here, the Polish intend to clarify the foundations of their Eastern policy and hope to clarify from Russians their view of the new mutual relations with the former partners in the socialist camp. The striving of Poland to join NATO and the decisive resistance of Russia to this made the relations between our countries somewhat tense. And this theme was probably the focal theme in the talks of the ministers on a one-to-one basis. According to their answers at the end of the meeting, each was left with his own opinion. The concept of common European partnership, which Russia offers, here is viewed cautiously for now. The concrete results of this work visit was the signing of the agreement on the preservation of monuments of the casualties of the last war. Albania has joined the program Partnership for Peace, proposed by the leaders of NATO countries. Today, this document is directed at the development of cooperation in the military sphere between the North Atlantic Union and Eastern European countries, and it was signed today by the President of Albania, Selim Berishah. Today to Latvia, with a state visit, the President of Poland, Lech Walesa, with his wife Danuta, arrived. there was a meeting with President Guntis Ulminus, and they discussed the question of two-sided relations, the problems of the regional security of the Baltic Sea countries, and the recent joining to the program of NATO Partnership for Peace. The presidents signed a political declaration on the strengthening of friendship and cooperation between Latvia and Poland. And today they also signed an agreement on the legal mutual assistance between Latvia and Poland, and a declaration on the renewal of the effectiveness of agreements which were concluded between the two countries during the period from 1922 to 1938. The dignified guest laid flowers to the Monument of Liberty, met with leaders of Christian confessions, and spoke with the representatives of Polish society in Latvia. Today in Mexico was the second day of the talks between the Mexican government and representatives of the rebel Army of National Salvation. The resistance of the Zapatistas with the government forces in the Chiapas state continues now for 53 days. The forces of the Prime Minister of Afghanistan, Gulbudir Hekmatyar, blockaded the road between Kabul and Pakistan so as to cease the deliveries of provisions to the capital and the mass wave of refugees. Currently in Kabul, there remain 1.5 million people, and the number of refugees is calculated at 800,000. Representatives of the UN and the Red Cross are attempting, through dialogue, to remove provision blockades. In Germany, another major scandal began around the sale by large state hospitals of internal body organs of cadavers, which is happening as in private German clinics as well as in Japan and the USA. The average revenue of doctors amounted to 2 to 5 million marks annually, says the Associated Press agency from Berlin, emphasizing that the marauders, the law enforcing orders of Germany, will impose criminal charges against society, which will threaten them with 8 years in prison. Spy sensations. The famous Russian scientist chemist Vil Mirzayanov, who was released from solitary confinement yesterday prior to the clarification of circumstances of his matter, stated that people in this prison are kept in inhumane conditions. Because of the lack of oxygen in cells, matches won't light. The prisoners are beaten, and in cells instead of 20, there are more than 100 and more people. The statistically average American family, Ames, today is in the center of attention of not only all sources of mass media, but the higher levels of officials of both Moscow and Washington. The reason of this heightened interest is in the broad term espionage. The head of the Department of Counterintelligence of the CIA, Aldrich Ames, and his wife Maria were arrested. They are accused of handing top-secret information on agents and operations of the American intelligence, first to the Soviet Union and later to Russia. During 10 months, American Special Services attempted to uncover the men who, since 1985, was working for Moscow. And finally, they concluded that it was Aldrich Ames who, through his post, had access to all documents, apparently revealed the majority of agents working against Russia. Not the latest role in the arrest of the Mr. and Mrs. Ames was played by law-abiding neighbors. They were truly surprised that the Ameses could allow themselves much more than the salary of an average civil servant, a house for $540,000, automobiles of the latest and prestigious models, and many other things. And now, after the arrest, not the best image is being painted of him by his CIA colleagues: lazy, rude, alcoholic, a second-rate worker, and only some epithets which Ames's former colleagues awarded him with. And now it became clear to them that with Ames not all was well. And this is usual practice when an officer working for the other side is described so. And for now, official Washington is alarmed. The President Clinton, meeting with journalists, states this is a matter of extreme seriousness. The Secretary of State, Christopher, calls for talks, the temporary lawyer on Russian affairs in the USA. The American ambassador in Moscow makes a statement in the Russian Ministry of Foreign Affairs. However, to comment on all the events, all unanimously refuse, including Yuri Kabaladze, the head of the press bureau of the Foreign Intelligence of Russia, with whom we came into contact immediately after the scandal broke out. Judging from everything in the near future, one may expect new details on this matter and future steps from the side of official Washington. According to American scientists' calculations, by the year 2100, the world population will exceed 15 billion people. Such a quick growth in the number of people can lead to disaster. The optimum figure must not exceed 2 billion. If it does, it will be poverty, hunger, and illness. However, no pessimistic predictions have ever, in any case, stopped people in love. How to quit smoking? Scientists of the world give a simple answer. First of all, have willpower. But if the habit is stronger than you and you fear a sudden gain of weight, then researchers recommend special nicotine patches. It is adhered to the shoulder and nicotine enters the blood directly. Gradually, dependence on tobacco decreases, and in several weeks, one can forever be ridden of the tobacco pacifier. For the 25th time for the International Fashion Week in Madrid, representatives of almost 1,000 European firms, couturiers, sewing factories, and major trade houses have gathered. They have brought here not only fresh ideas, but the latest innovations in outer and undergarments as well, for women and men, for the young and the old, everyday wear and evening apparel. And not only considered all tastes, but even levels of success in life of future customers. But no matter how the Madrid salon may appear to be festive, a real fiesta has not happened here. The entrepreneurs from various countries are unanimous in one thing, that the economic crisis and unemployment have led to a decrease in demand for their production. Difficult times are experienced by the host of the salon, Spain, whose strong sewing and textile industry is in one of the leading places in national economy, giving 300,000 people jobs. During the last year alone, more than 100 small and average companies have been bankrupted. A blow to local factories is dealt by foreign competition with cheaper products. And yet there are the first hopeful signs of the enlivening of this sector, producing beauty and elegance. And the Week of Fashions came to the Spaniards for their benefit. They signed here hundreds of lucrative conflicts. The owner of a large couturier, Antonia Sanchez, is participating in the salon for the last 6 years, finding new clients, concluding good transactions. She has successful business and deals with the French, German, and English, but contacts with Russians she wants to forget as soon as possible. She was attempted to be swindled. She prefers honest and civilized partners. Well, it's difficult to disagree with this. With this, I end my overview of the events in the country and the world which have occurred by this hour and say goodbye. After advertisements, you will see the Olympic Games news and the weather forecast. All the best.
Московская недвижимость – самое надежное вложение ваучеров и денежных средств. Миллионы акционеров МН-фонда стали совладельцами лучших объектов недвижимости и предприятий строительного комплекса. Наши акционеры имеют возможность выиграть квартиру в регулярной лотерее московской недвижимости. Московская недвижимость всегда в цене.
Акции АО МММ свободно продаются и покупаются во всех пунктах распространения акций АО МММ. Дни котировок акций каждый вторник и четверг. Предполагаемый еженедельный рост стоимости акций не менее 400 рублей. В отличие от любой другой ценной бумаги, акции АО МММ абсолютно ликвидные. То есть вы можете свободно продать их в любом пункте распространения акций АО МММ, причем по цене значительно выше той, которую вы за нее платили. Никаких ограничений по срокам покупки и по количеству акций не предусматривается.
Уже сегодня более 300 банков всех регионов России объединились в единую банковскую сеть. Единая сеть – это скорость взаиморасчетов. Единая сеть – это колоссальные денежные ресурсы. Единая сеть – это возможность погашения взаимных долгов предприятий. Единая сеть – это единственный путь к успеху. Тверь Универсал Банк.
Hello, my friends. For the 12th day, the flame of the White Olympiad in Lillehammer is burning. There are fewer medals in the coffers of the International Olympic Committee, and today, 4 gold medals were won. On this day, the 23rd of February, our men always try to commemorate their military celebration, and each wants to make himself a gift. And I think that was the mood of the Dynamo player from Ekaterinburg, Sergei Shepikov, who left on the 10-kilometer distance of biathlon. He shot like a true sniper, sending all 10 bullets in the target. At the finish, he beat the German Eric Gross by 6 seconds. And so the Olympic champion of Calgary in the relay became the strongest in Lillehammer and in the individual race as well. He added a bronze to his gold medal by Sergei Tarasov from Novosibirsk. At the start, did you have any sort of confidence? In general, no. But you hoped. Yes, I hoped, but when such thoughts appear, they must be immediately chased away like chickens in the village. And tell us 2 words about today's race. What? Do you think it was truly successful or not? Yes, everything was extremely and truly successful. I waited for this a long time and strived for this a long time to the individual race. And finally, the time came. Among the women on the 7.5-kilometer distance, we hoped for the champion of Albertville, Anfisa Rysova. But this was not her day. 5 misses in the last shoot left not one chance for her. Again, in form was the heroine of the last race, the Canadian Marianne Bedard. She literally ripped the victory away from the silver medalist, Svetlana Peremygina from Belarus, by 1 1/10 of a second. In 3rd place is the Ukrainian Valentina Tservo. In a giant slalom, after the first attempt, the leadership was won by the Austrian Christian Mehr, but the Olympian champion in supergiant, the German Markus Wassmeyer, showed such fast seconds which were impossible to be caught up by the Austrian and the Swiss Urs Kohlen. In the team competitions on northern duels, after jumps from the trampoline, the Japanese team is ahead of the Norwegians by more than 5 minutes. The famous American Bonnie Blair in sprint has no equal. She's proven it on the 1,000-meter distance once more. She has a 2nd gold medal. Today the quarterfinals began for the hockey tournaments. Here are the results of 2 of them. The Olympic Games are in the finish line, and now one can already name its heroes. At the competitions, I think only about skiing, only how to reach the finish line more quickly. In December, I got a cold and stayed 3 weeks in bed with a fever of 39 degrees. I don't care with whom I compete in the relays. My husband asks me to take a break and have a baby. I don't phone him. I'm afraid he's going to say to me, "Come home right away." All of this is said by the woman who, in her childhood, dreamed about becoming a ballerina and to ascend to the stage of the Marino Theater. She, who now likes to come here a long time before the beginning of the performance. She's Lyubov Yegorova, 6 Olympic gold medals. Such in historic skiing has not yet been known. The last 3 in Lillehammer. As others, this viewer thinks also about Italy. But the only difference is that Italy for her is not so much La Scala, but Stefania Belmondo and Manuela Di Centa, her main competitors in skiing. After her victory over them, Lyubov Yegorova herself hopes to dissolve in the crowd, to drown in a velvet seat of the theater, and in the company of her husband, Igor, to enjoy the stage. This medal she will prosaically place in a plastic bag and then will return back to her apartment in the Olympic Village. After all, a medal is only a symbol. Her main athletic wealth is this broad and at the same time controlled style, and her will, because of which Lyubov Yegorova is first. Some journalists call her the Iron Lady, but judge for yourself how just this is. Iron doesn't cry. At the height of the moment when the Russian flag is being raised in the night sky of Lillehammer, on Yegorova's chest gold sparkles and in her ears the hymn resounds. We'll add that the champion loves campfire songs and friendly company. In Norway, she eats Siberian dumplings in the evening, Russian borscht at Galina Kulakova's. This ski legend, Kulakova, is psychologically necessary for Yegorova more than anyone. Tomorrow, again, journalists and skiing.
Добрый вечер.
Good evening. In the central of European Russia, the weather tomorrow will be determined by the Atlantic cyclone. There will be an increase in cloudiness, snow, and stronger winds. Temperature at night -9, 14. During the day -3, -8. In the Volgovyatsk region and central Volga, there will be under the influence of a high pressure area. Here there will be intermittent cloudiness without precipitation. In the morning and evening hours, fog. At night, -15, -20. During the day, -8, -13. On the Kursk Peninsula, Karelia, Archangelsk district, and the Republic of Komi, the cyclone will bring cloudiness with snowstorms. During the night will be -8, -13. During the day, -3, -8. The Leningrad, Pskov, Novgorodian, and Kaliningrad districts, and also the Baltic countries, will be in a zone of low pressure. Here it will be cloudy with some snow. The temperatures at night -5, -10. During the day, 0, -5. On the lower Volga, the Volgogradsk and Rostov districts will be under the influence of an anticyclone. We're expecting clear skies here, -20, 25 during the night. During the day, -8, -13. In the Krasnodarsk and Stavropolsk area on the Black Sea coast and also the countries beyond the Caucasus, there will be intermittent cloudiness with some precipitation. During the night, -2, -7. During the day, +1, +6. On the Black Sea coast, +10, +13. In Georgia, Azerbaijan, +3, +8. In Armenia, 0, +5. Cloudy and wet weather will be in Belarusia, Ukraine, and Moldova. At night, -1, -6. During the day, Belarusia 0, Ukraine 0, +5. In Moldova, +2, +7. In Petersburg tomorrow, it will be cloudy with some snows. The winds from the southwest, 3 to 6 meters per second. During the night, -8, -10. During the day, -3, -5. In Moscow, the weather will be influenced by shifting western atmospheric fronts. There will be increased cloudiness and some snow. During the night, -7, -9. In the suburbs, down to -12. During the day, -2, -4. This is the forecast from our Oceanic Meteorological Center of Russia. I wish you all the best. Good